This video was originally recorded at Menla Retreat's annual Embracing the Sacred Feminine program with Robert Thurman. To learn more about this annual program, please visit menla.org.
The context of the great feminine. Philip Slater was a sociologist and a close colleague long ago of C. Wright Mills, a famous sociologist who wrote The Power Elite in the 60s and 70s. Quite big at that time, died. And Philip Slater also has passed away now, but he dropped out of academia from a tenured job in somewhere. And then he wrote a wonderful book. His original book that he was famous for in the 60s was Pursuit of Loneliness, which was a very, very famous book about industrial society. But then he wrote a book after he'd been out of academia for years called America, a Dream Deferred. And I think that some publisher followed him since he dropped out, and actually he was delivering milk in Santa Cruz. Driving a milk truck. And because I tried to invite him to a conference in Columbia, but he didn't want to go. Said he had to keep his milk brewed and so on. And I love that book. But what I just thought of in the circle is that he said it was a brilliant exposition of how democracy is not a set of documents, and it's not just the mere fact of voting and everything. Democracy is a skill, a social skill, and it involves tremendous amount of communication and bonding. You know, that's what I thought of in the circle. And he particularly said, therefore, that democracy requires the empowerment of women who talk and who look to each other and are very realistic and are concerned with the realities around them in a different way. And that until women were equally empowered in America, he said, American democracy cannot recover, he said. And it's really quite a beautiful thing about, and of course it's an analysis and a critique of the television world, you know, and these things that in industrial society, families and people get very isolated. They feel they're plugged into the larger world, but they're actually isolated as to what's going on around them. And he quoted, of course, as later some other sociologists wrote that, or established ones too. He quoted de Tocqueville, the famous French sociologist who came here in the 19th century. And he said the strength of American democracy at that time, which many of the Europeans were kind of doubtful about, was that Americans go to town meetings all the time. They're in the basement of some church and they're talking about who's doing what on which property. And you know, they made corporations are state incorporated, and the state could review them in the original rules every year. If they were harming the Commonwealth, they would be shut down by the state, not the federal state, the state. And all kinds of things about how America's strength had to do with people knowing everything about everybody else and communicating all the time, and not a kind of excessively isolated and disempowered form of individualism. And the key breaking through that was the horizontal relationships that women excel in forming in society. Mm-hmm. And men tend toward the hierarchical pyramid sort of thing, and then they get isolated on a horizontal level. It's really very wonderful. I recommend the book very much. How democracy is a skill and and it's impossible without the liberation of women, basically. It was his argument. Very, very well argued. I'm sorry, I just wanted to be clear with that. So, still ordinary reality, perhaps.
No, that's great. I'm having right here. So, does anyone have any questions on anything that we've covered at all today? Any question at all?
Oh, no, go ahead. Actually, Soapman, go
I just wanted to ask you what the other book was that you recommended by the New Zealander about labor was in the title. Can you say that again?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Who is the author and the name of the book of a New Zealand fellow that has labor in the title?
Yeah, that is Marilyn Waring, W-A-R-I-N-G. And the title of the book is Counting for Nothing. The subtitle is The Labor of Women. And it is a real shocker to read through it. Really it is. You know, especially, of course, in Africa and this Muslim world, in India, China, actually. Although, you know, and even here, but it's really, really shocking. Cover of the paperback is she's standing there. She has short hair, and she's standing in front of a tank, and then the cannon of the tank is coming over her shoulder. She's looking kind of serious. It's an excellent book. Very sobering. Because, you know, excessive population growth, violence, chaos, all come in countries where women have no say. And there's a lot of them.
Mary, you have a question?
Well,
Yes, Mary.
I don't know. I mean, it actually touches a little bit more on yesterday, but I guess it envelopes in today. The green Tara. Why, of all of the gods and goddesses, why this one specifically for women?
Of all the taras, why green Tara?
Yeah, like why?
Well, green is the color usually in the green and green black. It's very dark green, so it's like a green black. Shyama is the Sanskrit word. It's a very dark green, forest green, and it's the color of what is called the all-accomplishing wisdom. Sometimes the wonder-working wisdom, and it is, which itself is the transmutation of the addictive mental addiction of jealousy. And you know, green-eyed monster, it's interesting in the West, you have that green-eyed monster. So therefore the green Tara is always depicted with one leg crossed, like a cross leg, but then one leg is coming down, like she's about to get up and come to your aid, you know, quickly come to our high. And so the green or dark green or almost black color, blackish green, represents the ability to get out and change something, sort of active, dynamic, powerful energy. That's what it symbolizes. When the two first Taras were born in the legend, you know, I will look at this as far as tears. The white one is the white color is the healing color. It's called the mirror wisdom, a transmutation of delusion, actually, of ignorance, but of the addictive mentality of ignorance. And so she's peaceful, white. She sits cross-legged. She has an eye in the soles of her feet and the palms of her. Both taras do, actually. 3 eyes in her face, 7 eyes, and she's more peaceful, and she's involved in peaceful activities and healing activities, white Tara. Then there's yellow Taras, who are connected with prospering and growth activities, and red Taras are focused on dominating activities, dominion, and power. So those are called the 4 kinds of magical activities. So the green one is just very important because that's sort of the quintessence of the Tara as the incarnation of the miraculous, wonder-working activities and powers of old women. Okay, so that's why green Tara kind of emphasized.
Because my rational brain is thinking, like, looking at this image, it's very beautiful. I studied art history, so I'm like, you know, really connecting with it. But I guess I don't know how to say this, but like, I just really stumble with, is this real? Like, is this not real? Or is this like just to inspire something greater than, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Okay, so she's saying she's trying to understand if the concept or the actuality of Tara is actually real.
Is it more for symbolism, I guess? So don't get hung up on the image or the visuals and look at it as more like symbolism.
Should
Like
you
you're
look at it symbolically, or how?
Yeah, well,
how
people
should
can
you
look at it whatever way they're
Sure.
able to look at it. And, but Tara, I think Tara is real. I know a few Taras. You might be one. You never quite know. You never know. I think there are supposed to be, we never know who is what. And there are supposed to be as many Taras, and I'm going to look at that far as in the world, as the people in the world need. And not just people, animals also. And every kind of creature. It's they say, Gandla Gandul de la Detamba. Whatever tames or educates whomsoever, that is manifested to that person. So, you know, our tendency, of course, is to think that everyone else is just like us. So if we're in a good mood, people seem kind of cheery and they seem cool. We're like very frightened and paranoid, everyone seems really like hostile and dangerous and so on. So we tend to project in others what we think we are. And to me that's perfectly good. You know, you have to realize that West Asia, which was sort of a desert, you know, leading up to the Mediterranean, right? And then Syria, you know, most of Iraq and these areas, Egypt, a lot of desert, you know. And then Europe itself was relatively the poorest part of Eurasia. So that there was the greatest scarcity in the culture. And therefore, for example, one Tibetan Lama I know, I was translating for him at an interreligious dialogue, and he was talking to some Christian theologian, and he was saying, he was shaking his head like to say, like, come on, you know, your God is omnipotent, right? It's omnipotent, right? Create everything. Yes. Well, this omnipotent deity could only have one son in one time and place? Really? Well, yes, and then the Logos and the Christos, he went on and on about the great sacrifice and the redemption, he went on theology. And then the Lama was saying, he said, how many children do you have? 5. So you can have 5, but the omnipotent God can only have 1? And so it went back and forth like that for some time, and with no making a dent in the other guy's attitude. And then finally, the Lama turns to me and he says, I guess the old boy only had 1 bullet in him. And then of course I burst, in Tibet. So of course I burst out laughing. And then I felt embarrassed because the theologian was a little uptight. I didn't want to offend him. So then I made up something. Well, he said something, But the thing is, like Buddha does not claim to be omnipotent. I call it, the power of Buddha, I call it omnicompetence, in the sense of competently dealing with the difficult situation of ignorant beings, not creating it, and but very powerfully dealing with it, and helping, you know, enlighten them, and helping them understand. But you can't enlighten someone else, you can only give them reasoning, and whatever it is, you know. They have to understand themselves. So I think one of your difficulty could be, which I think is a difficulty in our culture, and I certainly know that difficulty. It is like what they would call in the old Buddhist texts. In general, it's a general human difficulty also in the East, which is a kind of lowliness of expectation. You know, the world is really not giving us a lot of stuff, and there's not a lot to go around, and couldn't be too great, you know. And I experienced that coming from a good old Presbyterian sort of background, but not very religious one, but still Presbyterian, basically, as fear of happiness, fear of success, fear of joy, fear of pleasure. Oh, if I'm happy, someone's going to whack me, or I'll break my leg, or I'll fall a hole, or I'll be careless, or I'll get arrested. If you know, as I usually like to say, in our culture, happiness is frightening and illegal. Most forms of it. And then people look very dubious to me because, you know, we're happy Americans, what do you mean? And then I ask them, ask you, your roommate comes home, or I don't know if you have a mate, or if you have a boyfriend, or if you have a husband, I have no idea. But that person comes home, and they look at you and they're shining with happiness, and they say, I feel so great, wow, it's fantastic, you know. And then, are you happy? And you say, why? And then they say, well, no reason, I just feel fabulous. Uh-oh, did you drink something? Are you stoned? Are you manic? Are you going to have a crash in a minute? It's like, and then finally, if they convince you that there's no danger, you then our final thought is, why don't I feel like that? What about me? We have a super scarcity psychology. We just want to know, oh, even God was omnipotent. Can I have one kid, he died, we didn't meet him, we didn't say the right thing, we don't say, we might go to hell forever. Because we're scared witless. You know, and that comes from a very poor place, very authoritarian. Some guy says, oh, I want to drop, Michael was talking. Some guy wants to say, oh, I'd like to be a yogi, I want to drop out, how can I do that? You can't do that, you have to work. You know, the no free lunch Protestant ethic, if you ever read Max Weber, it means you're only as valuable as what you produce. And women, therefore, have more babies. But what are those Republicans doing? You know, no birth control, nothing, you know, and no fun either, just babies. You know, and lots of them. And Africa, you know, the guys who have like 15 kids by this one, they start getting pregnant at 12, 13, and then they just wear out at 22 after 10 times. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, but you're only as valuable as what you produce. And the men have to go out and work, get a job, make money, do what? And die. Have a hedge fund guy, a venture capitalist steal your pension when he cashes out the company, and then you live in poverty, and Paul Ryan takes away your Social Security for your cat food, and then you drop dead. But that's all right, because you don't regret it after you're dead, because you don't exist anymore. That's ridiculous. So one is uncomfortable by the idea that it might be that there are all kinds of great people around, saintly beings, illuminated, kind, loving friends, then some of them might be practically divine or angelic or whatever, you know. I mean, I think it's a good sign. What was that thing, Angels in America? Talk about the idea there might be some positive forces. You know? All right?
So going back to the Guitarra, if you're looking at it symbolically, you know, it's actually more than just symbolically. You can think about the Tara herself being a portal into this field of experience that is protective, that has possibilities for helping you emerge out of problems. You know, it's kind of capitalizing on this idea of abundance, you know, that things are actually possible and that there is actually assistance. Because one of the things that happens when, especially in the Western culture, is that everyone is expected to be kind of independent, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, what's the matter with you, you can't make it. And we tend to not really think about the possibility that we could actually draw on the support of someone or something that, because that might indicate that we have some kind of weakness. And you know, to allow yourself to imagine being in the world supported constantly, and to think about the Tara as being the support that's ever available, that you can call upon at any time. And again, it's not like, as Bob was saying, it's not like blind faith, you know, it's you actually configure your psychology in such a way that you could actually imagine receiving this kind of assistance and look for it around you. And one of the problems that happens is when we get into a problem is we tend to get kind of narrow-minded, and we kind of get to the idea that there's only one thing that can fix this. This has to be this particular outcome, and then everything will be better. But if you can remember the Tara, and you can remember all the thousands of ways in which she saves, all the thousands of ways in which she perceives suffering, then allow yourself to try to feel all of the 1,000 possibilities that might be available to your predicament. And just having that as a psychological orientation changes your experiential experience of the world, and kind of helps you move out of this poverty consciousness that Bob was talking about. In this case, the poverty consciousness characterized by lack of assistance, lack of support, which I think most Westerners feel. This is pretty
It's good.
common.
I was just thinking there was a thing, outer Tara, inner Tara, secret Tara. And outer Tara is real beings that are out there. Female Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, who are ready to help, heal, prosper, and dominate bad guys. And inner Tara is your own ability to do that. Your own love in its wonder-working, your love and bliss in its wonder-working manifestation. And if you nurture your inner Tara, then I'm sure many times you have aspirations to see some problem or something around you, and I can do something about that. And then, oh no, I couldn't do it, and you draw back. And you feel, oh no, I can't do that, oh no, that's too much, or oh no, I don't dare. And you withdraw, and you're shy, and you feel, oh, I can't do it. And whereas your inner Tara is like, bam, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take a gamble, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to stick my neck out, I'm going to be of help here, I'm going to step up for this situation, I'm going to do it. And that's the inner Tara. And then I couldn't remember what is secret Tara. I have no idea, she must be in every atom of your body or something. I can't remember what is secret Tara. Probably some kind of bliss, freedom, indivisible, something like that. But I don't actually remember what is secret Tara. It's too secret.
It's a secret.
But inner Tara is your own mind.
Right. Okay.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't such a thing as outer Tara. And after all, there's lots of beings in the world. We don't know all who they are and what they are. We have no idea. There might be extraordinary beings. There are extraordinary beings. We know that. And whether they're all human or not, why should we believe that? That's another materialistic thing. There's the guy is up there, and like he's poor Isa sitting there, and then you're grounding, and the guy's like, no, breathe, pranayama, 3 weeks. No, you ground yourself. No. Just dishing out all this like excellent advice, telling somebody in Canada to go to that rock that she'd never been there. That might be real. I think so, actually.
I think so. I think so. I think that secret Tara must be the ineffable.
Well, that's all ineffable.
But I mean, when you've got an embodied Tara who's actually doing things in the world, that's
outer Tara.
Yeah, that's outer Tara. And then your own mind, but again, it's that developing that trust in the invisible forces that are positive, that support us. I mean, one of the
maybe secret Tara is a gendered male who. That's what it is.
I'm sure
that's what it is.
Absolutely
That's
not.
it.
That was like a stroke of genius. You got it right.
That's a joke.
No, but I think again, it's part of the poverty consciousness is that we don't believe in these, magical happenings that could happen, and yet they're happening around us all the time.
People don't believe in
and
magic.
the secret Tara, could be this force that's driving that,
Perhaps.
magical.
If you, the dog in a mess,
What about the dog?
what did he eat? He probably ate the lion car.
Okay.
So what on earth did he eat?
Carol has a question.
Yeah.
Quick
Yes,
question.
Carol.
From the reading of the sutra yesterday,
Yeah.
Taras, what does sound your home mean? What is a home?
Home.
Yes.
Home is a very forceful sound. And usually, Om and Hum, when they are paired together, there's usually 3, Om, Ah, Hum. And in that case, Hum is the mind. And Hum, the M shouldn't be closed-lipped. The M is sort of swallowed, almost like home. Like and it goes inward. So the Om is drawing in the infinite body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas. Thank you, Sarah. Sorry, I hope he didn't eat some weird thing. He's not going to be sick. So silly. He's just a little boy, like 8-year-old boy. The feeling that I don't want him eating the shaman's drum, then he'll start flying. And he likes to chew up leathery things, so I'm watching that like a hawk. So, And sometimes the fierce Taras, in the verses, that's not a sutra, but those are verses. And those verses, they say home, and home is like emphasizing that I have all the power of all the Buddhas, something like that. It's like more of a power sound. But when it's with the mantra, at the tail end of a mantra, it's sort of integrating the force of the mantra in yourself. So Om is drawing in from everywhere. Then the mantra, Taritu, Tarituri, Swaha. And then Hum, if the Hum comes, but Hum is not in that mantra, but where it is, it's drawing it into your heart and connecting there to the mind of all Buddhas. And then there was another one, Pe, or Pat. And that's a very forceful, that's like a lightning bolt sound. And that's also a fierce sound.
But Hum could also be, it's from the light of the letter Hum,
What?
from the light of the letter Hum, so that's different?
No, Hum is it's the heart center where the mind is. And then the light is that from your mind is a Buddha mind, of course. Everyone's mind, super subtle mind, is clear light. Everyone has super subtle mind of enlightenment inside. It's called clear light of the void. But normally we don't have access to our own clear light. But it is what radiates into the energy, which is actually our life force, actually. If you look at the Book of the Dead, introduction, you see this concept of coarse, subtle, and super subtle. Coarse body, subtle body, super subtle body. Coarse mind, subtle mind, super subtle mind. It's very useful to look at that. And the super subtle one is sort of the soul, body, mind. And actually body and mind are the same thing at that point. But the mind is clear light mind, the blissful awareness of clear light mind. And the body is a super subtle energy, very, very subtle energy, continuum of energy that leaves the body. That's what death is, it's when it leaves the body. During life, it resides at the central channel, heart level, inside a knot, which keeps you alive, because it's sort of tied in there in the center of your nervous system. And when you die, it breaks loose and should go upward, you hope. But a yogi or yogini who learns to go into the subtle nervous system, this is the technologies of Tantra, they can open that knot without dying. And they can, therefore, leave body, and there's all kind of strange things that happen. And that might connect to super secret power. That's super secret usually. Because that's not usually talked about, because then ordinary person would think that's my ego. My soul's my ego, that's my fixed thing that I don't know about, but it's there. And that's me, and I don't have to worry. Whereas that's also a continuum. And even though it already is Buddha mind, we have been unconscious of it for infinite time. We can continue to do so if we're stubborn and don't get wisdom, don't deal with the universal mother of all Buddhas. But that's part of the time. Okay?
Yes.
What?
Something
What is it?
wrong in your throat.
It's a piece of leather for me to chew?
Yeah, there is just, yeah, that's right, there you go. It's a cough drop.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Well,
It'll be good.
Simone had it.
I wanted to ask, you mentioned earlier actually being able to change the past. Is that something that happens spontaneously with the transformation of consciousness? Is it something
Actually,
You mentioned that you can actually change the past, and how
Oh,
would that
yeah.
happen? Would that be with the transmutation of consciousness, or how would that happen?
well, actually, the past is very different from what we remember. Just like the present is very different from what we experience. Because we are closed up in an envelope, like a closed lotus, We're closed up in an envelope of our own self-involvement. And we can't really realistically perceive what that we are also out there and are interconnected and stuff out there. I mean, somewhat, but we're still mainly closed in. And so we remember the past as our experiences of a closing being, battering against and being battered by, or occasionally having a hug or a pet of a cat, but still dealing with a sharp-edged world. And just as we are not really aware because of ignorance, we don't have full awareness of what's really happening now. Remember it, to not grant us full awareness of what happened in the past. So when we become aware at any now of totally aware of what's real here now, which means that we would be aware of this clear light super subtle level, all the intermediary levels, and the macro vast infinite level, all those awarenesses would be completely impossible. And at that point, then we see where we were always in that thing in any other moment in time. And then we see all the other dimensions of that past thing that we never appreciated at the time. Which is really, that's my consolation. That's what I call my consolation prize for my failure to become enlightened. For my loser of that state, losing of that state. I'm consoled that I'm not properly understanding what's going on right this second, because I'm still ignorant. But when I do understand, and when I attain nirvana and Buddhahood, I will realize that also I am already understanding right now. And I'll really enjoy this moment then, even with the horse voice. I'll really, this will be nirvana, someday. And then it'll be now, someday. That will be changing this past, you know. I saw it actually, but you know, I hate tragedies and unhappy endings. I will not tolerate them. Never would as a kid. Sometimes some people say, oh, Pollyanna, oh, but I don't agree with them. And so I think, I'm afraid Buddha was like that. And luckily that's what he discovered, there are none. But there are unhappy middles. There are unhappy middles. You know, there's no unhappy beginning either, because there is no beginning either way. But there's a lot of unhappy middles, unfortunately, out of ignorance. But the ignorance means that they're not really happening the way they seem to be happening. So in that sense, one changes the past. And another more seemingly relative sense, the atrocities, the Holocaust, the horrors, etc., those beings are all reborn. It's not the matter of the fact that they died in some unjust way, or even as a child they died, but they're all back. They're all dealing with it. Who's helping them in when they die and are reborn in that intermediary process where they're this subtle, dreamlike entity? Who helps that dreamlike entity, guides them in a good way? Guides talk to us in our coarse bodies normally running around between birth and death, flying over from California and going back and whatever, traveling from New York, Woodstock. But there's now, right now, there's floods of beings who have just died, who are in a between state. You know, millions die every day. And who's helping them? That's kind of people like guys like that are helping them. If you ever read in the near-death literature, people meet some kind of guide. Sometimes the ones who tell you came back, so they're sent back off, and they don't want to go back. They're much happier in that more subtle body state than in a heavy, coarse body state. But they're sent back. Oh no, your time is not right. Back to work. Back to figure it out. So that's the case. I viscerally kind of experienced it once in a dream, the past. It was amazing. It really was. I woke up like so flipped out. And I can't really remember what it was. But it was like an engine, something like a set of things unfolding. And then in the dream I didn't like how they unfolded. And then worked them just totally back and refolded them. I mean, I didn't really feel I was doing it. It was sort of happening, but I was sort of incarnated because it was a dream. But then from that I got a real conviction about it. Before I had a kind of consolation prize, you know, I was still groping around. But I actually saw it. So Buddha is not, you know, Buddha was 2,600 years ago. He didn't leave, you know, the Mongolian invasion of Eurasia, the British Empire killing everybody, this Holocaust, that famine. He didn't just lead people into that. He saw maybe this and that will happen. People live and die in all these different ways. He would be, but it all having to do with their past habits and their, what, you know, the way they do things. And the way these things come back at them from all the cycles and things. And he wrapped around this infinite womb-like presence to minimize any more of that. But somehow it's like, you know, like a A rose bush grows. You can't go and take the seed and wrench it somehow with a pair of pliers and pull out the rose bush. And then as it grows, and then the thorns pop out, maybe that pierces the skin of the rose itself. It's like, oh, my thorns are growing, that's unpleasant. So unpleasant thing happens out of growing, finally it's a nice rose. You never know. Things have their time when they think they have their time. Actually, those times, for a being that's fully wrapped around the whole universe in space and time, there's no time. It's all now.
And one of the things that prevents the perception of what he's speaking about is suffering and pain. And this is why healing is so important, and in-depth hypnosis, this is why there's so much focus on the healing of pain. And we actually, in depth hypnosis, go back in time to the source of the symptoms that are appearing in the present and change the person's relationship to those generating events. And that allows people to become more present in the current time, and it actually allows them to change their internal experience of themselves so that they are more open, so that they do have the possibility of being able to be more fully present across time and space. And that helps bring your consciousness into that larger place that Bob has been talking about.
Really neat.
Yeah, it's why it's so important to actually not. I can't tell you how many people in spiritual communities tell me, I'm trying not to be angry, or I'm trying not to be in pain, or I'm trying not to be jealous, because they think it's not spiritual. But actually, it's really actually important to be with whatever pain or suffering that you have, because you can't transmute it if you can't be present with it. If you cannot see it, if you cannot feel it, and can't allow for the possibility that it exists, you can't change it. So and this is really different, of course, than dwelling in your wound, and what Carolyn Mace talks about, woundology. It's not that. It's moving in that process that Bob was talking about, of moving in from the green Tara, who helps people emerge out of jealousy into all accomplishing wisdom, right? It's that transmutation of the poison into the wisdom is fundamental to Tantric Buddhism, and each of the poisons has a path into a wisdom, and it's a matter of taking the path and allowing yourself to feel the pain of the poison, find out the roots of it, move through it, and that opens into the wisdom. And so then actually the path toward a larger consciousness is actually through the suffering or through the pain. So it's why it's so important for us to be with that which makes us suffer.
Yeah, that is why the first noble truth is a noble fact, you can call noble facts to get out of society, religious dogma. The noble fact of suffering is facing the suffering in order to change it. The unexamined life, the unconscious driven life, unconscious driven life is unsatisfactory and suffering. But that, acknowledging that, makes you stop thinking that if I get another house, if I have another experience, if I have a better car, if I have more money, if I'm more beautiful, if I'm taller, stronger, whatever, then I won't suffer. Facing the unexamined life will be suffering. Then makes you want to look for the cause of that, and that becomes your priority to root out the cause and change it. Right? Otherwise, you always keep thinking, well, I'll just go around the corner, then I won't suffer. I'll move to California and I'll stop suffering. I'll move to New York. So that's right, that's really good, that's very good. About Tantra, though, I have to say, we have to be cautious about it, because the mental addictions, which are both emotional and also conceptual, are so powerful that when people hear, and now Tantra, it used to be secret, of course, but now, for certain cultures, it's been known for many centuries. And in the West, everybody knows everything, right? And when people misinterpret that and think, oh yeah, I could use desire to overcome desire, I could use hatred to overcome hatred, and then they jump into that without first developing some ability to distance themselves from these gut impulses. Then they drown in a sea of poison. And one has to have a certain, and it's very precisely defined, a certain degree of ability to disidentify from any kind of fanatic belief system, any kind of sense of, fanatic or absolutist adherence to a sense of fixed self. These things have to be overcome, and one has to find a little degree, some degree of one's fluidity, relativity, and therefore some experiential thing where one will not go with this flow of this negative emotion and that one. Otherwise, the idea, in some psychologists they get the idea, but there's one wonderful woman who wrote a book, I forgot, she talks about the hydraulic theory of anger. They have to vent it, it's like venting the build-up behind the dam, you vent off some and then you're cool. That stuff's totally false from Tantric point of view. Tantra requires a prerequisite understanding of the nature of the emotion, nature of the self, and some degree of loosening the reactive bonds before one can get into dealing with these powerful emotions and energies.
Well, in depth hypnosis, with the force that we use to help loosen the grip is actually the relationship that every person who enters into depth hypnosis develops with what we call a part of the self that has only the highest good as its sole intent, which is actually a field of energy, an expression of compassionate energy like the Tara. So then you never enter into any of these transmutational processes without that support and that power of the compassionate field of support, and that helps with the disidentification, because you can, unless you can open yourself to allow for the possibility of the experience of that compassionate presence, then you can't do any other work. So often often I'll spend 3, 4, 5 sessions with someone just helping them work through the resistance of opening to something larger than themselves that is compassionate in nature. And by the time they can actually connect with this part of themselves, a lot of that addiction and grip to the identification with the self is broken. So that's the way that we work with it. It's, again, depth hypnosis.
But there, in that case, of course, you are providing the modeling for them. The hypnotist is actually coming from that place, and that opens the door for them.
Right.
Otherwise, in a way, you could say that being American is a depth hypnosis. You have Fox News, like the Republicans are in a dead hypnotic state. And they have Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what can I do? And Donald Trump is going to save me. And I mean, it's like that. And so it's a matter of this kind of things are tools that are used negatively, actually.
Sure.
By culture itself.
But not.
And so you have that breakthrough yourself, and you are therefore shifting them into another. You're helping, and I think therefore, in a way, because modern technology of media and all this sort of thing is so powerful, the disruption of using hypnosis in a session with a responsible, already, liberated and having a sense of that compassionate pace is critical. So any kind of depth hypnosis will not necessarily be
that's
that.
Right. But
my elevator man in New York was under a depth hypnosis spell, Rush Limbaugh, and I didn't have to listen to Rush Limbaugh. I would just talk to him, and I'd get the latest. Vincent Foster was murdered, by Hillary, and all this kind of thing.
But with actual depth hypnosis, one of the really neat things about depth hypnosis is that it is in some ways interactive Buddhism, because the practitioner, one of the requirements of being a depth hypnosis practitioner is that you must have a daily spiritual practice, right? And there's a way in which the depth hypnosis practitioner actually opens a field of that compassionate energy for the person to walk into. And they're actually trained to prepare the space in such a way so that the field is holding compassionate energy. And so, and in some ways, the client actually benefits from the practitioner's practice, right? And that helps as a ground for them to develop themselves in until they can develop their own ground. And the whole point of the depth hypnosis process is for the person to develop their own ground, to become independent, to be able to be self-sustaining in their trust of their own goodness and their own
very good.
power.
Very good. Wonderful. Absolutely. You know, in responding to Mary's thing about Tara, is there really such a thing in all of this? One thing I just want to say in relation to the issue of faith and doubt and skepticism, it's not really, you know, the Buddhists didn't have an expression, Buddhism. They didn't use that expression. If to find out, you know, enlightenmentism, you might say, if ism means sort of a system organized with a certain, in orientation toward a certain reality, you would call it enlightenmentism, you know. But Buddhism to us, it connotes, oh yeah, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, it's like a category. So the reason that the depth hypnosis, as you said, is like Buddhism is because it is a scientific and a technology developed on a way of understanding the way the mind works, conscious and unconscious, interconnected. And that's all that Buddhist science is. We say Buddhist only because it came down in the tradition that connects to Buddha. But for example, the thing like someone has been introduced to the possibility of there being some sort of angelic, enlightened bodhisattvas out all around, maybe available to help in some way. Okay? But it seems very doubtful. So then there's two sides to how one would meditate about that and work with that and look at one's comfort and discomfort, which would never be just saying, okay, somebody said that, so now I have to think they're Taoists. I have to think. I mean, in one way, that might not be too bad. You're like thinking of something positive and you're saying, I should think about something positive. That's okay. But the more important is, why am I feeling discomfort? Why does it seem so surprising to me that that could happen? What are the cultural structures, expectations, sense of consensual level of reality, especially the powerful materialism that we're all indoctrinated in classrooms as we grow up in school, which has some good side too, because we're not scared of hell and the preacher is not running out trying to catch us around in the bushes or something. I mean, it's like, that's good. They rebelled against those lunatics in Europe who were burning witches and had Inquisition dungeons. That's great. I'm all for the scientists going and dealing with them. But then they get trapped in another direction. So I don't think I'm just anti-science, I'm very pro-science. But the thing is, whenever they shift into being dogmatic, without evidence, then they're no longer science. Then they have an inquisition. They are having dogmas. So when the way you work with it is your inner Tara, your inner present paramita, transcendent wisdom, works on looking at, well, there's this possibility that I've heard, that I sort of had a fantasy about or imagined, somebody talked about it, written in a book, but seems very unlikely to me. Oh, but why does it seem so unlikely to me? What do I think is real? Why do I think it's real? And what I think is real, etc. So those things always go together. For example, in the meditation on coming to an awareness, which to me, if there's any one takeaway, women's group, men's group, any group in America, it is to discover that you are a much bigger being than just yourself in this life. You have this vast, infinite former experience personally, not just your genes. And you have this future long travel route to book your reservations in, where you're going to go. That shifts the way we deal with the moment vastly. You know, there's a big thing about being in the moment. I told Eckhart Tolle, I said, who was a friend of mine, I said, if you push that moment so much, without questioning people's materialism, they didn't exist before they were born, they won't exist again after death, and therefore their deeper reality is non-existence. The moment becomes an escapist kind of, I just don't have to care, be responsible. They get a little relief from that. Yeah, they feel like they are here in the moment, but it doesn't link up to a sort of larger spiritual motivation to expand their awareness. So, but when you do that meditation about possibility of forming future life, the most important part of it is, well, why does it seem so strange to me? Why does it feel so unfamiliar to me? Why does it seem so uncomfortable to me? Why is it I feel it's so natural just to not exist when dying? Why do I feel it's so natural not to feel like just my body? You know? And you have a lot of people going, gotta be more body. Oh, all those religions, they want the mind to be separate from the body, they're despising the body. You have feminist theologians getting all into that. You know? And that's a simplistic, right? So it's always, you know, your mind, you want to cultivate the tolerance of cognitive dissonance, the tolerance of ambiguity in your mind from the very beginning, and be able to embrace different possibilities, sort of from different perspectives, right? Rather than just always be like on one track, okay? I think that's important, right? So discomfort with the new idea is important, and we have to look at why and what are its causes and reasons, right?
Can you
That's
repeat
really
that
cool.
one more
Really
time? The tolerance of ambiguity and the tolerance of
Cognitive dissonance.
What's that?
You have to be able to tolerate cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, because enlightenment is the ultimate embrace of cognitive dissonance in a certain way, inconceivably. So, as I described, probably in too much verbiage already. Yes, Alexander.
How does intuition weave into all this?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. If I can say something, that's one of my favorite things. Actually, intuition is a really important thing, but it's complicated a little bit. Now, if you ever read Immanuel Kant, I presume you might have.
Yes.
And you know, he used the word intuition, or what's the German for that? I forgot actually. Not Sinnlichkeit. I can't remember it now. But by what his translators anyway translated as intuition in English to mean a direct, unmediated experience of something, not mediated through a concept, something known directly. Like they have sense intuition and he has intellectual intuition, which is therefore not a path of reasoning. The sense intuition is not, but he had the idea that your sense intuition of the table doesn't use the label table. It directly sees the table without categorizing it with a mediating concept. And therefore, since it couldn't reach the thing in itself, which he presumed was in the table, this is where Kant is very different from Buddhism. Therefore, it's sort of, it's unintelligible almost in a conceptual way to the person. Intuition is. And yet he used it as a direct, as opposed to inference, which is conceptual. So the Buddhists also have a term, which they unfortunately translate, most of the modern people do, as perception, which is a very brilliant thing, where your sense perceptions, as they use that term, which I would say Kantian-wise, your sense intuitions are, it's like you see, the way they would say it is you see blue, and in a way you don't recognize it as blue. You cognize blue, but you don't recognize it as blue. You just go into blueness. And when you see, quote, blue, unquote, then you're having a mediated perception of blue, because your conceptual apparatus functions, and it restricts that color experience from not being yellow, not being green, not being white, not being red, and makes it, and then you label it and you recognize it, recognize it as blue. You follow me?
That's a perception.
And actually, your direct experience of things where you can't fit them into your concepts, where you directly see them, are kind of your Buddha awareness, actually. But in a way, they're inaccessible to you because you feel you're not having it until you can label it. Because you have to fit, in an effort to have control, we have to fit our experiences into our conceptual presuppositions. Do you follow? So we have to fit our concepts. Whereas when we directly experience something, it's a fresh thing, and it doesn't. It's like at first you're not quite sure what it is, and then you close around it with your concept, if you follow me. So it's a difficult job to disentangle that those concepts from the pure, fresh sense perception, as they translate, but I prefer to say sense intuition. So now, there's also the idea of feminine intuition, which means a kind of knowing which is precisely unmediated and inexplicable by concepts. And I feel it's very valuable in that sense that if people understand intuition as a direct, unmediated, trans-conceptual cognition, sense, or even sixth sense, which is intellect, then enlightened awareness and that feminine intuition can be interconnected. The slight danger about it is that a racist has an intuition that that person that they're racist about, sort of without thinking twice, is like lesser or inferior or something wrong with it. A sexist also has that, so there can be hidden concepts that create distorted, seemingly direct, intuitive things. So intuition can become distorted.
It's not a pure.
What?
It's not a pure element.
Not what?
It's not a pure.
not a-
Yeah, not if it's pure, yeah. But the point is, there has to be a kind of process of cleansing intuition from infection by distorting concepts, let's say. However, people go on wisdom about this super knowing that I've mentioned before. Whereas I like to connect it with the language of intuition, which has the both high Kantian epistemological sense of direct and unmediated, and also the feminine intuition idea, which is a popular one, but really valuable, I think. And I'm working on that. Now let me give you my example that I work with. When you have learned that left and right are reversed in your mirror, so when you put on your face, or a man when they shave, when they put the razor on what looks like the left side of their cheek, and are actually shaving the right side, they don't think twice about that because in a way they learned that already, and it's now accurate. It was corrected from the distortion and it's accurate. And yet the intuition doesn't interfere with looking in detail at that part of the face, or if you're doing your eyeliner or whatever stuff you do, you just do it without thinking twice. So you have simultaneously a conceptual functioning that's looking at what's in the mirror and dealing with the detail, a little over here, a little more there, you're dealing with specifics in the relation there. And there's a deeper intuition that this is an illusion in a mirror. So the knowledge of the fact that it's a mirror reflection is directly known simultaneously without having to be refreshed. While the other one is functioning, it doesn't cripple the other one, but in a way it allows the other one to make an automatic correction of the left-right reversal. And this to me is really valuable because when you have realized emptiness in the first level where things have disappeared under analysis, self and world, and then the world is back and it seems to be all separate from that space that was empty, but then after a while you begin to meld them together. Then that emptiness, which then you can play around, becomes a membrane. That is known intuitively without a second thought while you're engaged in dealing with the relationality, if you follow.
So intuition.
And that's the tolerance of cognitive dissonance function and the embrace of cognitive dissonance functions like that. But to make it so vast and cosmic the way they do is, of course, becomes inconceivable. These are only analogies that open one to such inconceivability. Okay? So anyway, bottom line, we like intuition, but it should be checked. It should be also checked with critical analysis to make sure. And this is the thing about Buddhist psychology, Buddhists as a science. Buddhists are not content, like Freud, to have a big unconscious and have their consciousness be a tip of iceberg. That is the ordinary person. But the project for the Buddhist, for medicine, for the person, it doesn't have to be Buddhist, for the person seeking higher consciousness, enlightenment, is to become more and more conscious of the unconscious, deeper and deeper. And actually, when you get to a certain point where it's safe, that's what Tantra is. It's getting down to Eros and Thanatos, Freud's favorite, Eros and Thanatos, the deepest drives in the unconscious. Getting down to deal with them and confront and deal with them. So that the ideal is to be fully conscious of everything. No autonomic nervous system. A Buddha is defined as a being that doesn't have to inhale by any kind of automatic reflex. If it would do better for the other beings around them not to breathe, they could just do it out. And they wouldn't inhale, which is a bit inconceivable. But apparently that's what they claim we are capable of. Sooner or later, some lifetime. And they have some reasoning to do it. Anyway. Okay, did you want to say something else?
Yeah. Based on what you said, just to make it clear for myself, so intuition is not really intuition. Is it based on past subconscious experiences? Did I get you right?
Well, no. I think
it's not
pure,
like fresh.
Pure intuition is the pure. If you use intuition as I would like for what's called pratyaksha in Sanskrit, in Buddhist epistemology. If you use intuition for that, which I think it should be, then intuition is like when you see something. There's a split second where you are at the thing you see. There's no gap between you and the thing you see. The minute you could recognize it, which is you file it and you draw from your bank of concepts and you place a concept over it and exclude what does not fit your concept in your perception, then you're no longer over there. You're back here and you control that by recognizing it.
Okay.
So the intuition, what I would like to call intuition, is that split second, and for an enlightened being it can be just live in that, actually, is being a field which is embracing everything you see and hear and feel and think. You identify with it all. You're one with it all. It's all you. And you don't have to recognize it and file it away in some personal control, like identity, NSA spy file. I know that's a table. That's how I said it. You don't have to do that. You just meet it, and you, in a way, because it's not you. It's not you. But and so it doesn't. You don't control it with the conceptual apparatus.
And this is why it's so important to work on your attachments and your aversions, because they contribute to your wrong knowings, right? And if you're attached to seeing things a particular way, or you're trying not to see things in a particular way, you can't be clear, right? Mm-hmm. And when I talk about intuition, one of the things that I talk about is filters, because we're filtering reality based on our attachments, based on our aversions, and we can't see clearly. So this is why it's so important to really work on equanimity, really get equanimity is one I think is probably one of the most important practices, because it's so difficult for most of us to really become equanimous and really not have any kind of reaction. And that instant reaction that Bob is talking about is often based in an aversion or an attachment or a wrong knowing that's come out of an aversion or an attachment. And that muddies the filter. And if you can work on, creating more equanimity, and as Bob was saying, you're in that experience where everything is right there and everything is the same, then what's happening when you're seeing what's happening arising in front of you, you're seeing what's arising in front of you in ordinary reality as kind of the tip of the iceberg of everything else that's going on. And if someone, like for instance, when I work intuitively, when somebody asks me a question, in a way, all I have to do is read what's going on around them that they can't see. And then I can offer some kind of question or some kind of pointer to the issue that they're having that they can't see because of their attachment or their aversion. And that's one of the reasons why I can look into someone else and say, this might be helpful, or this might be helpful, but I look into myself and I can't see anything because I'm so attached to having I do equanimity practice every single day, and I can't believe how much attachment I have, how much aversion I have. So I can't see, but when I'm working with other people, it's like all I want for them is to be happy. That's a kind of an attachment, but I don't have an agenda other than what can I do to relieve suffering, And I really kind of get better at that with myself. Getting your filters of attachment and aversion to lie down are going to really help you develop your intuition. I promise you, you will become 100% more intuitive by working on equanimity practice.
What are the equanimity practices that
Sorry,
are
sorry.
out there?
What are the equanimity practices that are out there?
Yeah.
Oh, well, equanimity is, we live in what is called the desire realm, the way the Buddhist cosmos works, and in the human plane. And then in the desire realm there are 6 heavenly realms, 2 sort of earthbound and 4 skybound that are really, I mean, you know, really luxurious. The highest one of them, the deities of that realm have had so much pleasure in the little lower ones just before that they don't even have any desires anymore. So it's the voyeur's heaven. They just vicariously enjoy the pleasures of the deities in the heavens just a little bit below that. But then you go into what is called the Brahma realm, the realm of pure form, or that they call pure form, but really it should be pure matter. It's still material, but there's less desire, and the beings there don't have differentiated bodies in the same way, coarse bodies, and it's divided into either 16 different layers or 4 layers, and the 4 layers are called immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and finally immeasurable equanimity. And they are contemplative. They're contemplative immeasurables. And if you reach those realms as a human meditator, of course you're in your coarse body meditating, but you go into kind of transic thing, where you kind of go out of body into those 4 immeasurables. And then if you get too attached to them, because you haven't learned about relativity and emptiness, you don't have that sort of immunization against being attached to a particular experience. There's a danger you might be reborn as a deity of those realms, which would be very blissful for you for a long time, but not supreme bliss, not Buddha bliss. And then it would arrest your development toward Buddhahood, because the bliss makes you forget about the suffering and forget about the fact that you're not embracing and becoming the mother of the whole universe, and you get lost there. So that's the equanimity realm is the 4th of those. But the point is that really great and true equanimity level has to have built, which is a divine state, it has to have built into it the love, the compassion, and the joy. Otherwise, it's a dead, dull zone. It's actually not good.
Equanimity, I'm sorry. Sorry.
What were you saying?
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you did?
I didn't mean to, I thought we were done.
Oh, that's it. Well, I might be done.
No, go ahead, no, go, I'm sorry, please.
So the thing is that the best way of finding the equanimity is not just sitting, because it could lead to a kind of sense of aloofness and divorce from concern about it, sort of artificially, and which is not particularly nurturing, not particularly vivifying, helpful to you. But if you start with, like our dear friend Sharon Salzberg was the Theravada people. I don't like to use Hinayana, by the way.
Oh, really?
I use the word individual vehicle and universal vehicle.
Okay,
And the universal vehicle needs the individual vehicle.
yeah.
And because Hina literally means deprived. So it's the deprived vehicle.
Okay.
Because they're deprived of the Mahayana reality.
Well, they are.
Well, yes. But no, because many of those who practice individual vehicle things are very saintly and marvelous.
Of course.
And actually they, philosophically and aspirationally, they do aspire to the Mahayana. But in a way it is less skillful. But on the other hand, it's realistic for them. Because non-duality can lead people to all kinds of misunderstandings. So that's why Buddha taught. We wouldn't have taught it if it was really something depriving people. We'd never have done it. at a certain point, you critique someone who's stuck there, then that's what it's used. So, now I lost track. Yeah, so one loves something. You know, that what metta means, first you sort of think of what do you love? And love in the true sense of want it, or she, he, it, or yourself to be happy. What do you love? And then, well, since I love that, want that one to be so happy, why not another one, and another one, and another one, and expanding that. And then, really wanting them all to be happy, one goes into a zone of kind of motherly gaga about the world. Goo goo gaga about everyone, like, oh, let them all be happy. Then one sort of looks at their condition, oh, they are not happy. Oh, I don't want them to suffer. And then spreading that equally. So you're getting to the equality by expanding your emotional sense of connection to being. You know, which you could say is using your attachment, but it's in all totally positive, because it's not like love in the sense of you want to possess something. It's love of you want them to be happy. Love, you don't want them to, compassion, you want them to suffer. Then joy, if you look at something with love, you actually begin to see the beauty in the thing. You know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's like that mother who sees the most beautiful thing I ever saw, you know. The baby in his little wrinkled thing looks like Winston Churchill. But it's the most beautiful thing in the world. So love makes it look beautiful. And the compassion to it too. And then there's a thing where you equally feel, you congratulate the beings for all their joy, and which is a great antidote to any habit of jealousy, where, you know, seeing happiness in another makes one feel left out, you know. Instead, oh, vast equality and joy. Then, slipping to the equanimity, then equanimity is the tower, penthouse, on top of love, compassion, and joy. And it's a marvelous thing, because it's really this sort of seal of the equality, of the universality of your love and compassion and your joy. We rejoicing with the joy of all beings, something like that. But you know, one can just you know, meditate on that everything, equality in general is very good. The wisdom of equality is born of the antidote of either stinginess or pride. The two passions, the two negative mental addictions are, you know, miserliness, stinginess, and pride. And the opposite of that is equality, seeing the equality of self and other. So that's good. But although even there, you know, the equality meditation, the equal exchange of self and other, is based on, is a method of producing compassion. Anyway, I'm sorry, now what was it you were going to say?
I was going to offer a practical meditation for developing equanimity.
Yes.
So one thing you can do is you can focus on something that you really, really love, and it could be a thing or a person, and then you can work at trying to get into a neutral engagement. So you're not trying to get to indifference. You're trying to get to a neutral engagement with that. And then you so you work at that for a while, and then you look at someone that you really don't like, or something that you don't like, or someone that you feel judges you or doesn't like you. And then you keep working until you can see that person again with a neutral engagement, not indifference, a neutral engagement. And then you look at someone or something that you feel indifferent about. And then you try to bring a neutral engagement to that, right? So actually, I have a CD and it's a download on the sacredstream.org website of the four immeasurables, and there's meditations for developing each of the four immeasurables: compassion, joy, loving kindness, and equanimity.
Perfect.
And then, so I just wanted to give you
Excellent.
that practice.
Thank you. Should have let you interrupt earlier. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Circle time. Time to go. Bye.
This video was brought to you in part through the generous support of Tibet House US membership community and viewers like you. To learn more about the benefits of Tibet House membership, please visit tibethouse.us. Thanks for watching. Tashi Delek.